Hi, my loves. This is your host, Karla, bringing stories of life experiences and of powerful lessons, also sharing healing methods and topics of the natural and supernatural. Remember, you are the medicine. Tú eres la medicina. Karla After Dark. Hi, guys. This is Karla, and I'm here with you guys once again, episode 7. And thank you for following Karla After Dark. Thank you for sharing and subscribing and following, being great supporters. So today, I have a special guest that I truly admired, and in such a short period of time, I got introduced to his music. And I'm so grateful to be in your space. And Madhu, how are you?
Karla, I'm doing great. I feel like we've already had a really good time in the short setup time, getting to connect. So I'm really happy that we're doing this and recording it, seeing what's going to come up.
Yeah, we're just going to be going with the flow and what we feel and the message or the medicine that we want to give to the audience for the followers and the future ones. So, Madhu, tell me how you became what you are now.
Well, it all started with my mom and dad. And
Conception.
I mean, it's a question, like, of course, it's going to start, where do I give credit to?
Yes,
and really, it's like the way that I came into this world, family, culture. I had a fairly interesting upbringing culturally, a mix of culture. My mother is Jewish by heritage, and my father was born in Puerto Rico. And these two cultures are somewhat different. There is some overlap, I think, in some of like the festive nature. But it was a very rich household to be in musically, with Puerto Rican music and Jewish music and prayers. It was a unique experience. I realize now, looking back, I think when I was in it, I didn't understand who I was. Mm-hmm. And that's probably part of the journey, who I am today. And it was starting with not knowing. Yeah. What am I? Who am I? Who can I compare myself with? Because I think I felt estranged from the world. Like I didn't fit in. And I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like my friends who celebrated Christmas, or my cousins who celebrated Christmas. But I was the strange one, the Jewish one, the one that I felt some shame around. And there were parts of my upbringing that I was proud of. I was proud to have a Puerto Rican grandmother who was very exotic and wise. And also my other grandmother on my Jewish side, such a loving, caring being. Mm. I feel really lucky to have had both grandmothers growing up, very loving. I think that helped to mold me into who I am. I could speak so much about this realm of my ancestors, but that's sort of the beginnings. It's like the kind of household I grew up in. Yeah. And I was closer to my Puerto Rican grandmother because she lived closer. So I got to see her more regularly. And she was I like to call her an advanced being. She was a meditator. Her family a lot of them were mystics. Namely, she had a brother who in the 1970s was a past life regression therapist and a naturopath. Wow. And a sound healer in Puerto Rico. Mm. His name was Pedro Gotay. And he was famous for being this mystic healer. And he even had a program he developed called Curso Sea, the course of being. And I feel like I receive a lot from him, even though I never met him in person, but I think my life is kind of going down a similar path. So when I was young, my grandmother would always talk to me about past lives. And she would tell me, when I make my transition, don't cry for me.
Oh.
I am always with you. We have spent many lives together, and I am forever.
Wow.
So I was molded to understand past lives, that this life, she would always quote Krishnamurti, this phrase, we are not human beings having spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we are all God, but we have forgotten it. She would tell me these quotes regularly.
Wow.
So as like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, I'm hearing about reincarnation. I'm hearing, we are all God, but we have forgotten it. And this made me very curious about like the afterlife, or the unseen realm, the energetic realms. So that's kind of where I attribute how I got my start on all the healing path I've been on.
So it was like she was already planting that seed, because she understood the fact that we come here and it's almost like a blank, right? And we will forget. And so she knew that she had to feel the need that as her being connected to you, she was like a bridge for you. Like, you're going to be the next, kind of like passing it down to you, right? Or do you have other family members or siblings that they follow similar path?
I think to lesser degrees, like I've probably gone the maximum of all my family members. But I feel really fortunate that most of my family is pretty open to me, and they might not do things that I do, but they accept me. And I think that that's somewhat rare, where a lot of families don't understand, or they can push away. But I've never really experienced that. I've had a pretty open family and received a lot of love from them, not a lot of pushback.
Yeah, a rejection, and like in a way of like, you're weird, you're strange, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of people do go through that. They feel like they're the outside, the outcasts, or just not feel they're part of their family, even though they are in the family, and they feel a sense of rejection. And sometimes what I've discovered some people discover that they have this mystical interest, and they feel they need to be in the closet to be this person who they are, because then you look strange to be believing what's the norm, which is religion, and the rest. So some people been in the closet. I was probably semi-closet. I was similar to that child, that I was very intrigued about spirituality, but I wasn't really, but at the same time I was scared, because it was always that dogma behind it. So for you, was it similar, or were you brought up in a religious form too? Because you're carrying,
Well, I have a memory that comes to me when you talk about spirits and being open to that realm as a young person. And I feel very fortunate about growing up Jewish. We celebrate Passover, and there's a whole ritual about the table and the meal that's served, and the Seder is what it's called. But there's something about, there's a part of Passover that I was intrigued by, which is the part where we pour a cup of wine for a spirit called Elijah. So there's a part of the meal where you pour Elijah's cup, and you invite Elijah to the Seder, and you put this cup outside, and the cup comes back empty or partially emptied. And it was always this mysterious thing, like did bugs drink it? Like I was skeptical, like how did that happen? Like did it evaporate? How did this work?
Yeah.
But every year I'd have this experience where this magical thing, like we're making an offering to a spirit and the liquid is disappearing. How does that work? And one time, there's like a upside and a downside to the story. So like first, the downside is one year my sister caught my mother throwing the cup of wine and making it disappear. And so we were like, oh my God, we've been fooled this whole time.
Yeah.
But my sister then, one year she made her own cup and didn't tell anyone. Went to her room and she said to the spirit, Elijah, like if you are real, I need you to show me because I need to have faith in this realm. So please take this offering. And the offering was taken. The wine was drank. And she told us afterwards, and she told my mom, never do that again. Don't ever pour out Elijah's cup. Like this is real and we don't need to pretend. So this is one memory I have of being opened to that magical realm.
Yeah.
And I think that left me open to receive further training and guidance for how to actually work that realm with greater skill and practicality. Like how can I make my life function better?
Yeah. So at what age you discover that this is something like you're gonna live as such, or it was the beginning of like the discovery of you, of like, okay, I need to heal, or was there a dark night of the soul, or was there like a situation in your life and your journey that brought you where you're at?
The dark night of the soul is helpful to go through if you can survive it. And
then talk about it.
It becomes part of the journey. And the dark night of the soul, I mean, I feel like I'm lucky I got to experience dark times and make it through and have enough support to make it through. And I think it was just being irresponsible, like being an irresponsible youth and finding how alcohol makes you feel good and you think you're the funniest person on earth. And I saw it being fun and then destroying myself and other people in ways that I was like, it's not worth it. There's got to be another way. And so I began seeking other ways. My grandmother, my father's mother, was a big inspiration because I'd watch how she would meditate and be so elegant in all of her interactions with people. And I just saw that she was always kind of in the flow. And I wanted that. So when I was in high school, she showed me how to meditate. It was a really special day. I asked her to show me, and what we ended up doing was sitting next to each other on a couch, and she had meditation CDs, guided meditation, that just basically guide your breath. And we actually held hands and sat, closed our eyes, and listened to the instructions to just breathe and always come back to the breath. I wish this experience for everyone, to hold the grandmother's hand and empty oneself. I only had that experience one time because then, of course, you meditate, you don't need to hold somebody's hand. But for my first time, I mean, I think that says a lot of my initiation. from there, I believe the year is 2008, I'm attending San Francisco State University. I'm studying music. I'm studying jazz and world music. But in order to graduate, person has to study from a different realm. It's almost like a minor, but not that many units. And I chose holistic health. And I started to learn from these classes about Eastern medicine perspectives, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine. That was really cool. Also, Western medicine perspectives, using biofeedback, the placebo effect, how our mind can create health and our mind influences our body at such a deep level. And it was in this specific class of Western perspectives of holistic health, a guest was brought in, a man from Japan named Murumatsu-san. I think he changed his name since then. I don't know what his current name is, but at that time, Murumatsu-san demonstrated energy healing in front of the class. So I'm in a university class of like 60 people.
Wow.
And here's this man having volunteers come up and he's doing energy work with his hands, not even touching the body, but pulling energy out and snapping his fingers and sealing it up.
Doing surgery.
Doing surgery, psychic surgery.
Yeah.
And I saw spontaneous healing occur. A woman received the healing and he said afterwards, okay, stand up and now bend over and touch your toes. And she did. And she got up and she said, I have not been able to touch my toes since that car accident 7 years ago. How did you do that? What did you do to me? And she was kind of freaked out.
She's like, what's going on?
And she went back to her seat. And I watched that and I was like, wow, I want to do this.
Yeah.
How do I learn how to do this? And at the very end of his presentation, he says, one does not have to be born with a gift to do this. Anyone can do this. And the closest thing to what I do is something called Reiki. So I said, okay. Whole path unfolding of seeking out a teacher, receiving the blessing on the hands to do this type of work where you're receiving and directing universal life force energy. And my first experiences of that was really for healing myself and experimenting with sensing energy or chi flowing through my body and witnessing the release that would occur, the emotional release that I never could get in any other way, never could get through therapy, talk therapy. It was deeper, energetic release without words that could occur with using Reiki. So it began with myself and then it evolved into experimenting with others and becoming more comfortable and confident with this realm of subtle energy and unseen energy and watching how people are having experiences when I run this energy. So that became a big part of my life. And I became passionate that we can create miracles. We can cut down on healing, like the amount of time that it takes to heal from ailments, simply with using Reiki, for instance. It's just one of many forms of energy healing.
Wow. So that's what started for you. And that was to self-heal. At that time, what did you feel you needed to heal?
The teenage angst. Because I was like in my early 20s and it's like just all the ways of being and thinking and like self-esteem or desires, all conditioning from childhood, conditioning from teachers, religion, parents, all of it. It's like that's occupying so much space in the psyche and in the spirit. So the first layers of healing is kind of washing out all those channels that have all these definitions, and it's like, well, let's let that be clear. And what happens when that clearing occurs is a lot of times it's like it can be tears come. It's a maybe shaking. It's a somatic release.
Yeah, somatic.
What's left afterwards is just open, available space for just pure awareness, to be just conscious of the present moment, conscious of sensation, and allowing the present moment to inform what it is we're perceiving, instead of all these belief systems or beliefs about oneself that might be limiting. So I believe I was accessing just like the original programming. And then it also addresses some physical things, Reiki is effective for physical ailments. And I know I'm going to be telling you a story about my own physical healing journey.
Wow.
Which is a miraculous one.
Wow. So at this point, you're in your 20s, correct? In San Francisco, young, discovering yourself, and any obstacles did you feel like that you were facing at that time? Besides like our own conditioning, our subconscious thinking like you're probably going crazy, or any mental challenges that you felt?
Well, it's a fine line between going crazy and enlightenment. And it's a fine line. It's like walking on a razor's edge. And it takes a lot of courage and faith to open oneself to the totality of, like, if we can expand it to feel everything, all that is, that's a wide spectrum to hold. And so we have to have a strong psyche, a strong mind, and spiritual grounding. I don't think at that time I had enough spiritual grounding. I feel like I had a lot. I think I had more than most people. But what I was lacking was like elders, like real authentic elders, or like indigenous wisdom traditions and the stories that come with that, that help, give a context for this spiritual awakening process, which has always happened through time. It's nothing new. So I wish at that time I had more community, more elders, and a little more training in indigenous wisdom and practices.
I remember, like, you kind of helped me look back in the timeline where, I was discovering myself too in my mid-20s, and it feels lonely. It feels lonely when you're in that path in the beginning. You feel like, am I the only person like so sensitive to like the world crisis, and like that you want to save the world but you don't know how to, and you somehow you adopt this like saving, and that's also attached to, for me, was the conditioning of my codependency, that's where it began for me, my spirituality to woken up that there was something wrong in my family, but not necessarily there's nothing wrong. There were the teachers for me to find me and to find who I am and remember who I am in such a weird form. I don't know what's the proper to understand in language, but they were used. And for me to say, I'm going to not pass this down. And for a long time, I feel so lonely because how can I relate? How can I talk about it with somebody else besides, at the time, was my mentor who introduced me to healing my codependency. But that attachment actually helped me understand why my heart is so sensitive. Like why I can see people as a child. I will see a homeless and you feel this sensitivity of like, how can I help them? Or why is this happening? and the world crisis. So then therefore you feel like you have to do something, but at the same time, like, you're struggling with the guidance. And I can relate with you with that. Having the proper guidance is someone to help you navigate in your walk as well. Because it can be, like you said, it's so, am I doing right? Am I going to the dark side? Am I going this? Like, you're everywhere. So you're not like, if that makes sense, puzzled, like fit together. You're just like all scattered. And so you're trying to connect everything in such a young age. And with that, like, I'm sure that you felt lonely for a while in that way, because you didn't have guidance or maestros or teachers to help you navigate your path, right?
Yeah, at that time, it was, a lot of it is trusting, having faith, but not having like the full grounding. Like, faith is important. It's an important attribute. We must have faith in spirit, in the unseen world. My faith at that time was in when my grandmother did end up passing away, and all her promises to me of, I am forever. I'm always with you. So when she died, it was like, okay, now prove it to me.
Yeah.
How am I going to see you? Am I going to see you? Are you going to appear to me as an apparition? I didn't have that experience. Other people did, actually. My grandmother appeared in 2 instances.
Oh, wow.
Not to me, but my sister had an experience where there was a seer who could see my grandmother was walking with her. Another experience where one of her dearest friends was at a party, and someone walks up to him and says, there's a lady sitting next to you. I see spirits, and here's what she looks like. And she's saying that her name is Alba and her name is Elba.
Elba.
And so, like, okay, she's proving it to other people. How was I experiencing her afterlife? For me, it was more so about faith, but I did feel like she was guiding me to different tools that were going to help awaken me from within. I didn't need an external verification. Cassette tape collection. So after she died, I got a lot of these materials, and there was a cassette tape that changed my life. Remember cassette tapes?
Yes.
I had a
Once upon a time.
So I had a car with a cassette tape player, and there was this cassette tape called Meditations for Manifesting by Wayne Dyer.
Oh my God, Wayne Dyer.
You know Wayne Dyer?
Yes, I do. I got introduced to him at 26, and I'm 40. So it's been a long time.
Yes. So influential.
Influential.
My grandmother referred to him as one of her gurus.
He technically was kind of like you say. Now I look back, he was kind of like the guru at the time for the ones that were getting introduced to the spirituality.
Yeah, he was like all over PBS and giving his lectures and tons of books. And all the material is really useful, highly illuminating. And so she was really into him. But this cassette was kind of it was way more mystical than I'd ever experienced before, where he describes this way of chanting that he learned when he went to India. It's a meditation that's known as japa, which is a repetition of the sound ah. And in this cassette, he's describing that this ancient form of meditation allows one to manifest, because the sound ah connects us to creator and creation. And you look at all the names of creator in all these traditions, the sound ah is in the names. So you have Rama, Ra, Buddha, God, Adonai. So many names. You're going to find Viracocha. Like, you go to all these traditions, okay, there's a common vibration that is present in the name of God. So, okay, we chant this sound over and over again. And what was said in the cassette tape was, when someone does this, you're going to start manifesting coincidences or events or people. You're going to draw things to you. So I'm like, all right, let's try it out. And I started doing these meditations, and I do start experiencing a lot of synchronicities, coincidences, and feeling so confident that I am connected to the source at all times. I just was never given the instructions on how to call in a direct way, like a direct line. It's just, ah. The doctor tells you to say, ah. But then you didn't realize they were saying, like, say God.
Yeah.
Like, call out to God right now. But that's what it is if you do it consciously.
Consciously, yeah.
And have this intention. And this meditation opened up my world. So it was given to me by my grandmother. After she passed is when I really started to learn this practice that she did in her lifetime. I would hear her in the other room when I was a kid going, ah, for like 20 minutes. So that was a huge thing, because this actually was my first awakening into the healing power of sound and vibration and the healing power of the voice. How our voice connects to every cell in our body, and we can transform our physical substance with sound and vibration. And our voice is the most intimate vibrational sound healing tool that we have. Every single cell recognizes the frequency of our voice. So that was, I thought it was maybe just a meditation that I found on a cassette tape, but it became highly influential on what I was to learn and study later on.
So from there, so you were always interested in music?
Always, since I was a little baby, always exposed to music and playing music and learning piano, learning a little bit of saxophone. That was temporary. Then learning guitar, and eventually developing my voice, and then having my voice become the number one instrument. Yeah.
So discovering the music within you that you have, that's a gift. That's what you now are giving that medicine to many of us to remember who we are. And from that timeline, a little bit fast forward, how do you discover what you are in this path as you were growing, you were healing, and so forth? Maybe go back into how your physical got healed.
Yeah, and this is almost like a dark night of the soul talking. Like it's, it maybe a better phrase is a healing crisis. When a person enters into a part of their life where your life depends on it, like you have to utilize all the resources you have available to make it through a very difficult passage. And for me, that was a physical healing. So I was describing all these things I'm learning: Reiki, sound, using the voice. And I was investigating sound healing as I was about to complete my university studies of jazz and world music. Somehow it transformed into sound healing. How is sound healing? I wanted to write my thesis paper on that. And I was almost there. I was 2 weeks away from graduating and just about to start writing my thesis when I had a very serious injury in which 2 vertebrae in my neck were shattered. I was totally paralyzed from the neck down, quadriplegic, on a respirator, was not able to breathe on my own. I could describe this situation in so many different ways. we'll see how much I want to get into that.
Yeah.
What I really want to describe is the fact that that happened and I healed. How did I heal? How did I deal with awakening in a hospital, being a completely disabled person, having a feeding tube in my nose, having a machine breathing me, having no ability to talk and no ability to move anything in my body? Well, for one, it's so challenging to be disembodied like that. To have we don't even know what it's like to have, unless you've been paralyzed in some way, when you tell your foot to wiggle and nothing happens, it's terrifying. What I can say is this really put me to the test, and it put my family to the test, to utilize all the resources that were available. One of the first things that happened when I went into this healing crisis was my father and my sister went to my Reiki teacher to ask her, how can we learn how to do energy healing, because we need to help heal my son or my brother. So they spent a day learning how to run energy and do energy healing. And so there was a period of time where I was unconscious. They were doing healing on me every day while I was unconscious. And you can only imagine what it's like to perform healing work on somebody you love who's unconscious. And I mean, I feel bad for, putting my family through such a scare. And, just trusting at the spiritual level, we agreed to this journey. And thankfully, I got to see my way through into recovery. But it began with that, with their offering me energy healing. A lot of miracles had to take place for me to be able to speak, for me to be able to move, to do the most micro movement. Was miraculous. And the doctors would gather around me whenever I would, activate a new ability. It was always a huge miracle. Because with a spinal cord injury, you don't know if anything's going to come back. And you have to work really hard to try to get as much return basically over the first year of recovery. And a lot of people don't make it. They don't make it out of a wheelchair. So I got to have an experience of being a completely disabled human being. That was my healing crisis. That was my initiation, which showed me so many levels of this journey of being a human, of being a spiritual being having a human experience. So this is a whole big can of worms I just opened up talking about this story.
It's okay. We have enough time. So with that, I mean, when you got conscious, how long was that when you were in, just basically in bed, not able to move?
Well, I think there was about a 10-day period where I was in an induced coma.
Wow.
And a couple weeks of being just a totally quadriplegic person. But then I was able to wiggle my big toe on my left foot, and that was this first sign of life. That was a miracle. And I started showing signs that I could recover, and it allowed me to get transferred to a spinal cord rehab facility in Santa Clara and begin a rehab process, which is pretty grueling to try to figure out how to use the body again, and very physically painful. And being put to the test of like, can you roll over? And like, it's like, how do I roll over? I don't even have the muscles to roll over, and you have to figure out how to flop like a fish to roll yourself over. Like, really, like almost like humiliating experiences.
Very humbling.
I mean, it really is a humbling experience to need people to bathe you, to get sponge bathed, to have somebody help you go to the bathroom, to have people brush your teeth for you. Like, it was one of the fastest ways to just totally shed the ego and like any like shame or like body shame. It's just like, what you gonna do? Like, I'm a human. I gotta
this is my
go
body
to the bathroom,
suit
and you need to help me. So, just cut through any shame about being a human being. So that was helpful in a way, going through this experience just to get that out of the way. It's like, okay,
First thing.
Be in my birthday suit. It's the most natural thing. And why do we have shame after shame about that?
Right, I agree.
Well, the hospital experience really helped me get over that real quick. So, I was just thinking about this the other day. I didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again, honestly. I didn't know that. It didn't look like I was going to be able to do it because it was just so hard to move and to sit up. It just was not even possible. And then learning how to stand, I tried standing a couple times and I would just faint. My body would just give out and like I'd black out.
Wow.
And the physical therapists would tell me, you need to be able to stand for 30 minutes before we can even try to teach you how to walk. And if you can't, then we just can't help you walk. And I couldn't stand for like a minute, like 2 minutes. But one of the things I did, it's kind of strange. I had my father strap a pencil to my hand, and because I couldn't hold anything, I held this pencil and I wrote, I will walk by July 1st. I just chose this date. I don't know why. The week leading up, all these miracles came, boom, 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 to the point where I stood in that standing frame for a half hour. And on June 30th, I was brought to these parallel bars, and I was told to stand in them. And the physical therapist looked in my eyes and said, are you ready to take a step?
Wow.
And I did not expect to hear those words. And first thing that happened is I just started crying because I didn't think I was ever going to hear those words. And then I said, okay, yeah, I'm ready. And it's like, I'll never forget that moment. Taking a step and have my father watch me take my first steps. He missed my first steps as a baby, he told me.
Wow.
But he was the one who got to see me take my steps as a new man, a reborn human being. And I took that step, and then I took another step and another. And I started walking back and forth on this thing to the point where another physical therapist came up and said, you're doing a great job. How long you been at it? And I was like, this is my first time. And she was like, huh? I've never seen anybody walking back and forth like that on their first time. And to me, I'm just doing what my body's telling me to do.
Yeah.
So this is one instance that I'm sharing of a miraculous moment. There were many. And I've told this story on other podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm in a book called Energy Medicine, where there's a chapter where my story is told. there's so many little miracles and like accelerated healing moments because Reiki was happening. There was a lot of Reiki happening on me. Sound healing. The sound that I learned from my grandmother, the ah sound, I used that. I used that in the hospital. I didn't have a voice at first. The doctors thought I would never have a voice. They told my father, we're not sure if his speaking voice is ever going to come back or it'll be the same.
What?
And yet it did. And whatever voice I had at that time, I was just like, that was my ah. But I could feel the vibrations in my body. Yeah. And if I could feel the vibration in my body, I say, okay, I can transform this body. And I visualize the Reiki, the universal light moving through my body and being confident that this is changing my cells, changing me at the molecular level. And if I can do that every moment, there's hope. Maybe I can recover from this. And I feel very fortunate that I did make it. And I attribute, some of it definitely was a hard work, physical therapy, but also like the support of family and friends, huge for my recovery. But also like energy healing and sound and vibration played a major role.
Who was doing sound healing for you?
So I was a few different angles from that. My father and my sister knew that I was researching sound healing, and I had some recordings by Jonathan Goldman, one of the pioneers in this realm of sound healing, and he has beautiful recordings. And I had a CD in my apartment, and they went and got that, and they were playing a recording for me continuously.
Wow.
Even when I was unconscious. And I actually have memories of hearing that when I was unconscious. So like when people are, bedside with somebody, they don't know whether or not they're conscious or they can hear anything. They probably can. They probably can hear everything. So knowing that, having sound healing music, having beautiful sounds or positive affirmations in the room, I was aware of a lot of these things, even though I looked like I was not present. So we had these recordings of Jonathan Goldman. One of my cousins showed up one day with a CD that said Gayatri Mantra. And she said to me, I think you need this. I feel like this will be good for you. And I didn't know anything about it at the time, but Gayatri Mantra, this is a Hindu mantra that on the recording, it's a chant that's repeated 108 times. And in this recording, there was a description that said, the chanter of the Gayatri Mantra will develop certain abilities. One is sweetness of speech. Another is psychic healing of ailments. There is probably a few other benefits. I don't remember all of them. But I remember the psychic healing of ailments one, because when I heard that listening to this or chanting it would have psychic healing of ailments, I'm like, sign me up. I need that right now. Bring it. I need to walk again. And so I played this. It described utilizing it at 3 periods of the day: morning, midday, and in the evening. So as often as I could, I would listen to this recording. It's about a 45-minute recording. So this was one of the sounds that was playing for me. Eventually, I learned it by hearing it so many times. And at first, though, I was just hearing it. And what I understood is how mantra are these sonic formulas that in the language of Sanskrit, they have correlations to our chakras and the way that energy moves through all of the meridians in our body. Just the syllables themselves will access the way that energy moves through the body. So when hearing the sounds or making the sounds, we're changing the inner landscape. We're changing the way energy moves. So I believe that this is what makes healing possible, or at least it increases the odds of healing if we're accessing more of our full vibrational expression. Because the English language, it only has so many sounds in it. And you go to a language like Sanskrit and you have far more vowel sounds and ways of breathing and making sounds. So it optimizes a human and their relationship to sounds. So that was a big part of my healing as it relates to sound. I was chanting the ah sound whenever I had free moments and just feeling the current of that vibration. Ah. And then smiling, like always attaching joy, gratitude. Because that, if you start reading Jonathan Goldman's books, one of the first things he says is the way you get sound healing is you have a frequency of sound and you have an intention. Yeah. Those are the two ingredients. So your intention rides on the frequency of the sound, and then you have the outcome. So if you have a sound and then the intention is gratitude or all is well, the sound will capture that energy of like all is well or thank you and create these outcomes. And that's how you get sound healing. That's how you get a healing outcome with sound. It's a really simple formula, but it's profound when you just do it and experience it for yourself. Like, what am I creating with my sound and with my mind joined as one?
Wow, that's true. Like, because the mind, it's how we navigate it too, right? So it could be going this direction, that direction. So when you're talking about the frequency and understanding all that, as now that you're a musician, you're an artist of music, how does this have to be for you that when you play music right now in this current time? Like, we'll backtrack in a little bit of that, but like in this current time, as you see back, how that was connecting with you now?
I think it shows up in the amount of languages that I find myself singing in now. And it goes back to my roots and the earliest part of my life where I'm exposed to Hebrew chanting. That was my first experience of chanting, is hearing this ancient language, this mystical language of Hebrew. It's beautiful, powerful. And branching into other ancient languages, Sanskrit being one, Tibetan became another language I felt this strong connection with, and finding that I have a knack for learning Tibetan long form chants, Tibetan Buddhist chants. And I've gone through different periods where I will deeply study realms of chanting and practice the intonation and learn the meanings as best I can. But really it's about the vibrations themselves. Like that's the beautiful thing about ancient languages, is without even knowing the meaning, all the information and the energy is in the sounds themselves. So knowing some of the meaning is helpful, but it's mainly about energy and intention that comes along as you chant. So yeah, I have a long list of languages that I'm chanting these days.
Really? So what was the first, like, you started with Hebrew, right? Or did you started with something else, like a different language?
Yeah, Hebrew, and then hearing like songs in Spanish, and my father and my mother loved the opera. So I think I was exposed to a lot of that when I was in the womb, like Italian opera and these like romantic languages.
Yeah.
There's a power in singing in the romantic languages because they have these open tone vowels. I think that's part of why they sound good. Like, they sound better. It's like maybe a little more exotic than singing in English.
Yeah.
But there's this, to me, it's because there's these open vowel sounds. When we sing vowels, and the vowels are sacred. Vowels convey spirit. This is what I grew up hearing from my father when he was teaching me about Hebrew mysticism. He would say, when you look at the Torah, all that's written is consonants. Vowels are not written down.
Oh.
Because the vowels are sacred. The vowels convey the spiritual realm. So these cannot be written. Otherwise, you're materializing something that's not meant to be material. The vowels are immaterial. And the consonants are what make materialization. So in Hebrew, only the consonants are written traditionally, and the vowels are not. And so I was raised with this understanding that, okay, vowels are a big deal. And when we sing, emphasizing the vowels, and don't really pay attention to singing the consonants as much, but have an open voice. So back onto the question you asked about chanting. Sanskrit chanting came next, learning a lot of Hindu chants, kirtan, like a call and response chanting, like Om Gam Ganapate Namaha, very common. And then Tibetan chanting, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum is probably the most popular mantra in the world. It's a 6-syllable mantra which cleanses what's called the 6 realms of existence. That's a whole nother topic to get into.
Completely another topic.
But let's just say it's a formula of 6 syllables that's basically saying, may all beings in all timelines and all dimensions be happy and free of suffering. So great, that's a nice English phrase to say. May all beings habala 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 habala. Why don't I just say Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Creating this vibration. That's a beautiful, like rolling, rhythmic, practice to help train our mind as well, to be clear. That's the other beautiful thing about chanting, is it's a tool to clear one's mind so that we can be protected from our mind. The mind is this have you heard this term, monkey mind?
Yes.
We're always battling the
God.
monkey mind. It's always seeking some type of a fulfillment and creating all these
Who's monkey?
stories.
Who made that monkey? Oh
Right.
God, the monkey mind. How dare you come into my
until you witness a monkey meditating, you're always gonna have a monkey mind. And then if you see a monkey meditating, then the monkey mind is different. If you see that monkey just go into emptiness, I bet there's a few out there.
I'm sure.
Unless we become the monkey meditating mind. But chanting will help us get there.
Yeah,
I could go on this monkey tangent for a while. Like, could you imagine a monkey chanting a mantra?
Oh my God.
Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Out in the wild.
Right. But
I'm gonna have to leave with a chanting with you, so I can, when I meditate, I can have that.
Yeah, to have a chant practice is one of the most centering, grounding practices we can have, and having a proper intention going into it, having the right kind of a motivation to allow for it to have the maximum healing benefit, and then how to dedicate that practice. Because when we use these sonic formulas, we're generating a big energy. So not only are we healing the mind, cleansing the mind, but we've generated a strong energy. And then there's the power of dedication. To make a dedication, may these energies go towards the healing of all beings everywhere.
That's
may
beautiful.
They be free of suffering. May they have experiences of happiness. That's all part of this, like a formula for how to make sound maximally healing, or how to make chanting maximally healing.
Yeah. So with that, going back into you're healing your body. So how long did that take for you?
Well, like I said, I started walking on this date of June 30th. My injury occurred on April 28th of that year, 2009. So that was about 2 months. And then I spent a couple more weeks in the hospital. And I walked out of the hospital as I had seen in a vision. I was going to walk out of the hospital through the threshold. And they didn't believe me at first. The doctors were like, you shouldn't be thinking about how you're going to walk. You should just be trying to be a good quadriplegic person and learn how to
be accepting,
live an adaptive lifestyle. And I was at that moment kind of crushed, but like, okay, I'm not going to speak out loud to the doctors the visions that are coming to me.
Yeah.
And they are just going to have to be pleasantly surprised at what's going to happen, because I trusted in the process I was experiencing and these messages that were coming. And I had to kind of silence myself and just be like, okay, this is going to be an inside joke for me when I show them what will happen. And I did walk out. And of course, they were really supportive and proud of me that I was this, they called me the miracle patient. And they called me the Superman patient, because I was doing things they had never seen before in the spinal cord rehab facility.
Wow.
So I was breaking all these records of like rapid recovery from being really incapacitated to standing up and walking out of there. And so I went home to my parents' house and continued rehabilitation, learning how to walk. I would walk like around the block and then create a larger and larger circuit around my neighborhood. But I had this very simple lifestyle, very focused about healing, and still a lot of time of like reflection and introspection. And
in that moment, you had a connection with like higher power? Did you had a connection of something bigger than you already, so you trusted? Was there something that you were holding on to like that, trusting the process? Like, that's huge, because a lot of people be like, fuck the process. You know, it's powerful, like something that you were sustaining yourself. There was that something to grab on, you know what I mean?
I had just enough to grab on. You know, earlier I was saying like, oh, I wish I had a little more grounding and spiritual mentorship, but I did have some. And one of the things that was a grounding element that got me through was through Reiki. One of the things I was taught about Reiki is there's 5 principles of Reiki. So the ability to channel universal life force energy. There's a way to do it. And the 5 principles, if I can remember them, you have to say to yourself, just for today, I will not get angry. I will not worry. I will be grateful. I will work hard and do my work honestly. and I will be kind to others. That's 5. And just for today.
Mm-hmm.
So every day, just waking up and saying that, it was very helpful to be in a condition where I had every reason to be angry or worry. And of course I experienced worry. Like, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to...
Yeah.
But okay, I'm going to put my faith in the higher power, you know, the universal life force energy that is healing, that is balancing. Okay, so how do I allow that to run? I have to make this commitment just for today. So I can do that. So replacing the anger and the worry with gratitude. So this is kind of like a superpower.
Yeah.
If we go into a state of gratitude, that's what allows these currents of healing energy. If we go into worry, if we go into anger, that's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
But you're blocking this type of a chi to flow. So just like having awareness like that is very helpful. You know, it's not saying like, let's totally eradicate anger.
No, we need it.
We got to have some.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, how can we be skillful if we are seeking the self-healing or administering healing to others? And so I loved those 5 principles. That was one of the things that got me through the day-to-day.
Wow, the 5 principles.
Okay. I will not
Okay,
worry.
Listen, everybody listen to this.
Okay, I will not get angry. I will not worry. I will be grateful. I will work hard, do my work honestly, and I will be kind to others.
I think that's 6, isn't it?
Well, like this, work hard, do work. Yeah, like I've heard it in different ways.
Yeah.
I will work hard,
Yeah.
or I will do my work honestly.
Something, yeah. I work.
That's one.
Okay, so Madhu, so how from that experience you move forward? Are you still in school at this time?
When I'm injured,
Yeah.
well, I had to take a pause.
Had no choice.
I was
The
absent
universe had
for
a different
good-
plan for you.
I think I was absent for a year after that.
The teacher's like, that guy never showed up.
Yeah.
Oh God. So from there.
Well, I did have to go back to complete the last 2 weeks and complete a thesis paper. And so I got to graduate from San Francisco State. However, what I really had my sights set upon was learning more about sound healing, because I had just gone through this experience, and part of the downloads I was getting while I was in the hospital was, you are going to heal from this, and you are going to teach others how to use sound for healing. And it was a crystal clear download. And so I had this awareness like, okay, I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to teach others how to use sound for healing and how to do energy healing. So I discovered that at a school in San Francisco called the California Institute of Integral Studies, CIIS, there was a program called Sound, Voice, and Music Healing, a 9-month certification where it's an immersion into this realm and getting to discover all these different practices and traditions from around the world, utilizing sound, voice, and music for healing. And so in 2010, I got accepted into this program.
Wow.
And it was a very interesting thing to return into the world with this body that
It's like a new
does
baby.
it work? Does it function? Like, it was actually, it's a trip to like try to learn how to walk again, try to learn how to like use the bathroom again. Like, I'll just say this, like, I have no problem talking about my personal business, but when you injure your vertebrae, there's certain vertebrae that connect to your bladder into your bowels.
Oh no.
And I messed those ones up. I've had miracles occur though, I gotta say. Like, so I've been in the place where I could have been on a catheter my whole life.
Imagine that.
I mean, there's people
God,
that
no.
have that.
I mean,
and it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, I had one for my C-section for my baby. It was so uncomfortable.
I know. And it's a trip. Like I'll just say this too. Like, let's put this in the interview. One of my challenges was they would catheter me, but then they said, if you're really recovering, you need to catheterize yourself and prove to us that you can do it.
Yeah, do yourself.
And my hands barely work. Like, I'm paralyzed. Like, my hands are curled up like this, and I'm supposed to put this thing into my thing. And it was,
like, God.
You talk about like mind over matter. Like, all right, Creator, you are putting me through the ringer right now. And I did it. I was able to catheterize myself.
That sounds wild.
And just like everything that I was experiencing, a miracle occurred after that. And they then saw that I could control my own bladder, which they didn't believe I could do. Wow. But they were like, okay, Mr. Anziani, you've proven to us you actually have sensation. You do not have to catheterize yourself. Hallelujah. Thank you. I did it, and now I'm out. I'm done. But still, nevertheless,
great news.
It was really hard to like control my bladder when I'm out in the public, and I'm like in San Francisco.
Oh
and
my
like,
gosh, trying to find a public.
Right now. Like, these are the adventures of a former quadriplegic person running loose in the city. It's like,
just pee everywhere.
I seriously, like, I peed everywhere. Like, I'd be looking for alleyways.
I mean, it's the city, so I mean, half of the time it smells like pee. So.
And I feel like one of my magical powers is I had an invisibility cloak. Rarely.
I always wanted that too. Mental strength. Move things and be invisible. That's
yeah.
I'm not here peeing in public.
So, what were we talking about? Spiritual healing?
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Because I think you vision yourself peeing everywhere.
We're talking about school. I was talking about when I went back to school.
Oh gosh.
And like re-entering the world.
Re-entering.
So I have a good story to tell you about this.
Okay.
So my name, like re-entering the world, it was like I was getting a new beginning of life, literally having to be reborn. So the name I was born with is Ruben Matthew Anziani. I love that name. I was Ruben for the first 23 years of my life. And something became really clear to me as I was going through my healing process. I can't be that person anymore. I have to let go of that identity because it's gone. It's over. It was like a death had happened. And I felt like if I was going to heal, I needed to begin a new chapter. And I decided I'm going to use my middle name. Why not? It's there for me. It's my name.
Why not? Have a choice.
And actually, all of the other males in my family use their middle name as their first name.
No way.
That's how it's done in Puerto Rico.
It's not in Mexico too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't start that way. I could have been Matthew my whole life, which I'm named after my grandfather, Mateo.
Mm-hmm.
And so I received Matthew as my middle name. So I tell my family, I'm going to be Matthew now. I want to go back into the world and use my middle name. And they said, well, okay, it's your name. Okay, we'll call you that. You're Matthew now. So that was I think, helpful to go back into the world and tell people, my name is Matthew. And it's like, I feel like I'm an actor in a way. And then people probably were really enchanted by how happy I was when they call me Matthew, and I'm like, yes, hello. And they're just like, whoa, okay, happy to see you too. But I just was like so happy to like, I'm alive. I'm so happy to walk. I'm so happy to be just absolutely in the world. And then Matthew is like a fresh vibration.
Yes.
So how did I become a Madhu from Matthew?
Madhu, yeah.
So in my healing process, when I came home and I was learning how to walk again and walking around the neighborhood, I found myself walking to a restaurant several times a week, 2 blocks away from my house. It was a restaurant where they served pho, one of the greatest soups on the planet.
I agree.
Everybody agrees. Number 1 soup.
Sounds good right now.
Yeah. And the restaurant was owned by this lovely Cambodian family. And it was one of these kind of restaurants where there's a family table where all the little kids are playing and yelling and drawing. And I would go 3 times a week to get soup.
Wow.
I'm practicing walking, so it's like, well, let me get pho. I'm going to walk down. So the family was so inviting, like, why don't you go sit at the family table? Like, sit with the kids. And these kids became my best friends. And they just were really one of the few people in my life. And they gave me so much joy. There was a little 11-year-old girl named Apau.
Aparo?
Apau.
Aparo?
Apau.
I
remember she was trying to train me how to say her name. Apau. And gosh, her whole family was so sweet. She had another sister, 2 brothers, but she was like my buddy. And then one of her cousins comes. He's 4 years old, and this kid is wild and super energetic. And he speaks Cambodian and French, but like very little English at this point. He's 4 years old. So he's running around and he can't really pronounce Matthew. And he's saying, Madhu, play train with me, Madhu. And every day I'm hearing this little voice yelling at me, Madhu. And I'm like, Madhu, this kind of sounds like a Sanskrit word to me, because I'm familiar with the term sadhu, which is a mystical,
sadhu,
very mystical type of a being. I could talk about that, what a sadhu is, but I was like, I wonder if a Madhu is any connection.
Yeah.
I look up Madhu, and it has a very deep, beautiful meaning, as it's described in Wikipedia. It says Madhu. It can mean honey or sweetness, but also the word Madhu is used to describe the nectar of the teachings of the Vedas.
Wow.
The nectar of the teachings is referred to as the Madhu. And that hit my core. It really touched me to my core. And I said, I would love to be called Madhu. And I would love it because this little boy who became such a dear healer for me, that he gave me this name. And so the last little piece about this, what's trippy about it, is the name of this little boy.
Yeah.
His name was Udam.
Udam.
Now, if you put Udam in reverse, Udam Madhu. Oh. Udam Madhu. A reflection.
Yeah, reflection.
A vibrational reflection. And he eventually left. His mom moved back to Canada. He was just in my life for this very brief amount of time where he blessed me with this name.
Wow.
And he showed me this deeper teaching of all the world around us is just a vibrational reflection. This is just a hall of mirrors. And at that time, this being gave me what I needed, which was the blessing of the name and the empowerment of one's name, which is like our vibrational calling card, calling card to our purpose. Our purpose, if our name has like a deep meaning and a purpose attached to it, every time someone utters that name, we remind ourselves of that purpose. So I walk with this name Madhu to walk with that sweetness, to walk with the nectar of the teachings to the best of my ability, in my life and in my music. That's what I aim to do.
That's beautiful. Hey, my loves. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Karla After Dark. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Share them. Follow the link below. I'm looking forward to you joining me on my next episode. Thank you for your love. Namaste.